All right. Welcome to a thing. A virtual thing, as there are not actual laser cats behind me. Or are there? That's what you have to determine by the end of this panel. I think this is virtual Con Carolinas Virtua, simulated the Sims edition of Con Carolinas. And this is a panel about the importance, the beauty of collaboration in filmmaking. We have several very, very talented, and aside from Sammy, dazzlingly, stunningly beautiful panelists to kind of talk about the different things. Is it applause or murder? I don't know. That's something else you have to figure out. Are we murdering someone during this panel, or is it just random background sound effects? So, my name is Mr. Jason Buterin. I am the writer and director of Kill Giggles and the creative director of Mad Ones Films. And I've been lucky enough to play with Con Carolinas for many, many moons now. So it's kind of fun to be able to do this sort of different virtual edition of a filmmaking panel that I think a lot of our panelists have probably talked about the importance of before. That being said, I'm going to let our other brilliant panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll kind of just sort of fire off some questions. And I'm going to not drink rum, because this is a PG-13 panel. So I'm going to have a refreshing beverage as we listen to brilliance. So let's start. Ms. Aja, I don't know you as well as I know the others, so let's start with you, please.
Oh, okay, thanks. I'm just kidding. Well, I'm really happy to be here. So yes, I'm Aja Khai Chang, or Cha-Chang, I don't mind either. I am a film director, writer, producer. I actually have, spoiler alert, in Con Carolinas, hey, hey, hey. I'm also CEO of Love My Productions, which is behind my head. And yeah, so let's talk about some amazing collaborations. Somewhat.
All right, we'll go next to Ms. Angela Pritchett, who
Hey,
plays
everyone.
ukulele, by the way.
I do play ukulele. My name is Angela Pritchett. I am an actress, special effects makeup artist, and I have directed a couple different short films. And I play ukulele, so yeah, you could check me on YouTube for that.
And then there's Sammy.
And the ugly one out of the bunch, Mr. Sammy Castle. I am a North Carolina independent filmmaker and producer and actor and general jack of all trades. I'll hold your water if you need me to, whatever you need. We had this little beauty in Con Carolinas. Uncle Otto's Truck, which is a Stephen King adaptation, and I'm also known as Sammy the Comic Book Man, where I go around to elementary schools, libraries, and middle schools and such, and encourage kids to read, and specifically comic books, but read in general.
Yay, Sammy.
I like it.
Well, those are our introductions. One little question I always just like to ask film friends and stuff like that. How did you get involved in this creatively sadomasochistic genre of, or the beauty of filmmaking? How did you find yourselves getting involved in getting either behind the camera, in front of the camera? How did you get to be in front of our screens now?
I was kidnapped.
Excellent, good answer.
No.
Blink twice if you're okay.
They let you loose, that's fine.
Sorry. Being outspoken like this, that's what got me started. And having a really creative mind. So I've always been interested in writing stories from the time I was little. Then I was fortunate enough to actually study like television when I was in high school. And ever since then, I'm like, I love you for life. You will not get away.
Excellent. Mr. Sammy, how about yourself, sir?
I stumbled into this. I was 44 and didn't have a clue what I was doing, what was going on. And my wife and I volunteered to play zombies in a short film. What was supposed to have been a short film ended up being a feature film by a guy who is now my production partner, Dan Sellers. And we went and played zombies in the middle of the summer, hot as hell, sweating like crazy.
Great for makeup.
Yeah, exactly. Ready for makeup. I spent 3 hours in a chair. We got there 3 hours early because they wanted you to show up with your makeup already done. I didn't have a clue how to do none of that stuff. So, and it was my wife's our 13th anniversary. So we were like, hey, let's go play zombies. Grabbed one of my younger daughters who was in college at the time, And we went and played zombies, rolled around in the dirt, had a good time. From that, Dan and I met at a Comic-Con and started talking about the film. And he said, I got some, I've decided I'm going to make this a feature length. I've got enough footage and stuff. I need to cast some more parts. And he said, I sent him a thing that said, look, I'm that crazy old guy that goes, don't go in the woods, you kids. And that's what I got cast as. Yeah. And we formed a fast friendship. We've been best friends ever since, and do podcasts together. And we've done 2 features and 5 or 6 shorts now. Film festival. It's been a blast.
Excellent. Ms. Angela, how about yourself, love?
As a child, I went to a performing arts elementary school where we, in 4th and 5th grade, did Shakespeare plays every year. So I started off doing theater, well, very abridged for 4th and 5th graders. I started off doing theater, and then when I got into high school, I started doing a lot of short films with friends. And then when I went to college, there was more short films happening. And then I just started auditioning and working on television that was filming in North Carolina.
I love it. That's awesome. Ironically, I actually studied theater too. That's actually when I first got to know how to do stage makeup and all that cool stuff. So that was cool.
I got along well with a makeup artist on a movie that no one liked or got along with, and they taught me how to do stuff.
No one liked
to hear you.
Stop.
No one liked the movie or the makeup artist?
The makeup artist, he was hard to get along with.
God. I don't know anything about people like that.
I know, right?
Well, and that brings up an interesting point, especially about collaboration. But it sounds like with all our panelist background, we have a wide variety of skills in front of and behind the camera. So that being said, and I tried to write down questions so I would sound slightly, mildly official and stuff like that. What was your first, so let's say collaborative experience? And I know there are some that can argue that the entire art of filmmaking is collaborative in general. Others may disagree. But what was your first collaborative experience in filmmaking, and how did that shape you? How has that shaped you as an artist and everything you've done from that point on? Samuel, we'll start with you.
Well, obviously the very first one I did was a collaborative effort because I had never acted before. I had never been on camera before. I think I maybe made a TV special when I was a kid, just like this news story kind of thing. But for whatever reason, Dan and I just kind of hit it off. At various points, I've tried writing. At some point in the future, I'm going to try directing. I can't write. I just don't have it in me. It's just not something I'm good at.
Words is hard.
Yeah, it's very difficult, and I appreciate anybody that can do it. So we have a very unique relationship in that I don't necessarily feel like I have to be involved in everything, but I have a knack for producing. I have a knack for finding stuff that nobody else can find, or producing,
which has to be very collaborative. So.
Yeah. So by very nature, that's collaborative. So when somebody needs a set or an animal or something, I normally, because I've made a lot of friends in my life and done different things and made a lot of friendships, I'm able to find people who have that kind of stuff. I don't try to write. That's Dan's thing. He writes direct. I produce, act, and we're just a happy family like that. Stay in your lane. I don't get in nobody else's lane.
That's actually a good point.
That is a good point. Let's go to Asha. I mean, your first collaborative experience within filmmaking, and then how has that sort of shaped the filmmaker that you've become?
So at first I was gonna go with kind of a semi-boring answer of when I was in TV club, but obviously since then I've definitely or even entertainment camp. Yes, I went to entertainment camp. But the first time I actually did the whole like, come on friends, let's go make a movie. I used to play soccer with a couple of my friends, and I was like, wouldn't it be so cool if we actually decided to make one of those like reenact one of the chase scenes that you see in films? And we're like, oh well, we can go to like this. It was like a parking garage right in the middle of the day at a mall. And then all we did was like sit down in a room and just like throw out everything that we had. We're like, well, I have this that looks cool. I have this belt that looks like this. And we're like, who's gonna be the bad guys? Who's gonna be the good guys, or whatever we thought in our heads. And that was the first time I noticed what it's like to be like resourceful of like thinking of, like you said, someone thought of where to go. Somebody else thought of, well, what's the storyline? What are we gonna be going after? And I was just telling them kind of like the vision I had for how we're gonna film it, how we're gonna shoot it. And before you knew it, we actually made like a little short film. That was like first time making a short film. And their parents saw it and they're like, not gonna lie, I thought this would be a lot more crappy. We're like, I know, we use like skateboards so that we can like, so we can move around for certain angles. And they're like, what? Like, and it was like, they're like asking us like, where did you get this from? And how did you convince your old, so-and-so's older brother to drive you guys in a car? Because like not all of us had a driver's license. Like it was, we just knew like, I came with them with an idea and then we thought of how to make it happen. And to me, that was my first time being like, man, I really like this idea of coming together and telling a story. So what went from a chase scene actually became like, we actually had a plot and like characters and costumes and everything. And I was like, this is great. And that's my first time realizing how important each person plays in producing a film. So, yeah.
Very true. Very true. Miss Angela, how about you?
It's not the first time, but probably the most memorable was, so really, I can't remember like how long ago this was, probably like 2007 or 2008 or something. Mariah Johnston and I decided to make our first short film together. And we made a micro short film. So it was for a competition. And trying to keep some people to like actually get stuff done on deadlines was my first real having to be that annoying producer person and having to be like, hey, this is due tomorrow. Why isn't it edited? Hey, this is due. We need to do this. Hey. So it's one of those things where I learned that I'm super annoying and that when I come into a production, I have to actually look at people if I'm doing any type of producing, and I have to be like, hey, if I text you 10 times in like 3 days to do something and you don't respond to me, you're not going to block my number, right? Because I'm going to keep texting you because I need to make sure this stuff gets done. So I've learned that sometimes being a nagger is a good thing when it comes to collaborations.
Well, and Bill Mulligan actually wrote down a few questions in his email that I stole blatantly, so I'm going to claim them as my own. I don't know if I should answer my own question. How did I get into filmmaking? All because of a girl, who I've been married to for 15 years now, and she's upstairs running.
Yay! She's
running
wonderful.
She is. She's amazing. The fact that she hasn't told
wonderful.
me,
she's a saint for putting up with you.
She hasn't told me to fuck off yet, and I actually meant it. And I think that was
she makes amazing cookies.
That was my one F-word bomb that Gilbert let me get away with. She does make amazing cookies. She makes amazing
cookies.
Boys and tacos and pesto pasta. However, filmmaking. I got involved with it with a thing called the 48-hour film competition.
Yes.
Yeah, an international thing. And to me, I mean, that's a trial by fire in the very sanctity, the very art of collaboration on a film set, because you've got such a finite term. You've got 48 hours literally to write, direct, edit, score, whatever like that, chop, shoot a short film. And if you don't have complete collaboration, you're dead in the water before hour one is even over. So to me, I mean, I can't think of filmmaking without, I'm sorry, I'm trying to center myself so the little laser dunce thing is right above my head. I can't think about filmmaking without it having being completely collaborative. So we're officially changing the name of the panel to Stop, Collaborate, and Listen, which can be a sensitive subject because some people want to go, Bowie and Queen Under Pressure. Robert Van Winkle ripped off a bass line, changed it a little bit, but I'm getting distracted. So now back to, don't roll your eyes at me, Sammy Castle. You knew it was going to come up. Angela, you brought up a good point. And I think we all wear that certain hat of being a producer, and largely within the realm of independent film. No matter what you are on set, you're probably a producer. I mean, if you're a writer, director, actor, whatever like that, just because no one's got any bloody money. How do you light a fire under someone's butt who is being a weak link, like on a film set? Coming at it to be able to try, how do you just go in ruthlessly for the kill? Do you try, like, how have you dealt with people who have been weak links on film set to still try and make a collaboration happen? Angela, let's start with you.
Ooh.
It can be good or bad. I mean, it can be
to really think about that, because normally I'm just super naggy and I'm like, hey, these are our deadlines, we have to get them done, or hey, we have to ship this stuff out to all of our Kickstarter people, they've been waiting a year. So it's one of those things where it's being super naggy, and then to the point where you just have to like go to their house, knock on the door and be like, hey, this needs to be done. Can we hear some wine? I brought some, let's do this. So, but sometimes, there's random group chat humiliation or something, but I'm normally not into that part of it, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
All right, tag on. Well, and a second question to tag on to last our other panelists too. Have you ever had a collaboration just completely derail a production, and a collaboration that just didn't work at all, derail a production, and how did you respond to that?
Ooh. Well, so far, every short film I've set out to make has been made. But yeah. See if the new one gets made once we're allowed to leave our house.
Go outside that. Or does the Rona force us to get more creative and collaborative? I don't know.
Well, I mean, truthfully, in the last month, I think I've made more short films than I did towards the last half of last year. So
really,
thank you, 48-hour film challenge.
Yeah.
So I've worked on 5 short films in the last month. So
nice. Asha, how about yourself? Have you ever had a experience where you've there's been a weak link on set who's not fulfilling their link collaboration?
Yeah.
And then how do you light a fire under that butt, or do you just set the entire person on fire and just watch it burn?
Or a train. A train is really helpful too. Just kidding. Well, no, my face was saying it all. I was like, oh my god, yes. So man, it was so hard holding it in. Okay.
Let it out.
I know, I need to courage. Okay.
It's therapy / panel sessions. It's fine. Gilbert's looking all official and therapist-like anyway, so it'll be cool. Yes, we can still see you.
Indeed. But yeah, okay. So what did I do? A couple of things I've done when I was thinking about what have I done before, and I was like, I've held people hostage. That's great. That's what I usually do for 48s. I literally just tie them in one house. Like, you're staying here. So I know where you are. And then we have limited amount of cars. No, this actually really has happened. That's one. Another way is, I was going to say contracts. Contracts do kind of help, but a lot of it is relationship. Like, even if you sign a contract, say I'm going to do something, relationships is what's really going to keep people together. Appreciation for the vision. And usually when that has not worked out, I have threatened people before, because all too many times editors have decided to be like, I don't really feel like doing it anymore. And I was like, but guess what? I can edit too, so go home. And then they're like, oh, is that my job? I'm like, yeah, you get no credit. So either get back to work or just pick a side. And I hate being that leader, but it worked though, because then they're like, oh, she could do my job. And so most of what's helped me with collaborations is knowing how to do everybody's job. But it's also made me a better producer, because I know actually how much time and what kind of resources. I know I've been in their shoes before. So it's been a win on the positive, but there has been times I've used it as a threat for sure. So
People around, you know.
I know, and and I do agree with Angela. Like sometimes you have to be that annoying person, or I do have a few friends who are like way better at like nagging and like, you know, kind of following up people, and I'm like, I enlist you to be the AD, like please. And you said a tail end question. You asked something about. There was another tail question that you asked before.
A project that fell apart.
Yeah, I was just like, what the hell did I say 5 minutes ago? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you had a collaboration that just sort of went off the rails, or a project that went off the rails due to collaboration just not working.
I have like I mean, I feel kind of. I do have one. Like we're just finishing up with editing it, but how would I put this? I've had situations where people have, like you said, derailed a project or thrown us off for a timeline of what we wanted to get accomplished, especially during a 48. But normally, I've ended up having to like either go through and, you know, kind of just, you know, finish it up myself and then realize I never want to work with them ever again in life. That's happened. And I usually try to end it amicably if I can. Dang, I had a better answer in my mind about that. But yeah, basically, they've never completely, like, they've never succeeded in derailing it, but it definitely threw off wanting people to, like, having to kind of get the morale back. Or I think the worst was having the lead actress actually be the problem. That was probably the one that always floored me. Dealing with post-production, I don't know. I kind of, at this point, I've now realized things just pop up and it's okay. Like as long as I start learning better skills of how to communicate what's wrong and focus on like attacking the issue instead of attacking a person. And I try to teach the same thing to my team. And I think that's what makes it still work. But I'm not going to lie, there's been some stuff that we'll always remember, like that was awful. And we're not going to work with them again like that.
Ever again.
Ever again.
Sammy, how about yourself, sir?
Well, that's one thing I've learned from going from business to the filmmaking world. Most filmmakers or anyone who's getting into film are very self-motivated anyway. So it was actually kind of nice as someone who's run a bunch of businesses, who's managed a bunch of businesses and dealt with other managers. It was nice to come into a situation where basically everybody was self-motivated to begin with, because especially on this level, everybody really wants their film to succeed and do good. It's not just one person. You know, like if you're on a big production set, there's a lighting guy. And that lighting guy is only doing his lights, and that's kind of all he's worried about.
Lighting person.
Well, he's union. That's why he's only worried about that.
Exactly, which is his job. But if you're on an independent small film, you're kind of got your hands in different things, so everybody's kind of self-motivated. I have worked on a film that I saw a collaborative effort just kind of break down. I had some friends who recruited me to do a short film and act in it, and I also produced a lot of it. And we killed everybody. Somebody left the door open. I'm getting cheers for my stuff. So they started collaborating, and one of them wrote, and the other one was directing, and then they were. We were supposed to have two cameramen, which was the worst part, two DPs, a DP and an assistant DP. Well, the assistant DP and the director were buddies, and the DP and I were buddies. And while I didn't get involved, the three of them started kind of manipulating and moving stuff around, and it just got ugly and nasty. And the worst part about it for me was it affected the film, which I had put some money into and some, you know, and it just caused me to be less likely to work with those people anymore. You know, and I didn't get mad about it. I didn't fuss it. I didn't holler. I'm not that kind of guy. But I just, you know, the next time they called for me to do something for free, I'm like, no, I'm busy that weekend. I got this other thing going, so I gotta go hang out with Jason Buterin.
Yeah. Not since he shaved his head and did all that other crap. He just looks weird.
That's weird looking. I've upgraded to Brett Mullen.
No, I keep walking by the mirror. I'm like, what the oh, yeah, okay. Technically, that wasn't an F word, Jason. I stopped myself after the F. All right, other official questions. There's a phrase, no one person is an island. And I think we could all agree to that. I think we've all met some peninsulas or penises, if you will, within the various thing of filmmaking. What do you think can be one of the hardest things, or what are some of the hardest things about collaborating to make a film? And I think we've got different experiences here that I'm curious to hear about. I think maybe our panelists are too. I mean, Angela being a brilliant musician, have you scored something for someone else? Trying to come up with something, to tackle a collaborative approach from that, writing a piece of music for a film that you may not necessarily have written or directed. Ash, and I think you've done acting before too. But I mean, to be able to be a part of some, to act in something that you don't have that vested personal creative interest in. What can be one of the hardest things, or what are some of the harder issues about trying to collaborate with something when you're not necessarily the creator of it? Or have you done that? Angela, what's up with you?
Okay, I wanted to make sure I didn't talk over anyone.
I know. Well, you never know the Zoom call because everyone's just like, ah.
Well, for me, like, the composing thing is really funny because the last thing I composed was my graduate short film, and that was in 2012. So, like, the last thing I composed for film. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things where I just don't have I travel so much, I don't have the equipment that I don't always get to compose stuff for film scores. But I was actually working on another film with someone, and she was directing this film. And the indie world compared to like a big budget world is so different that sometimes you have people on indie sets that try to talk over people, important people like the director, and start trying to give direction to actors. Especially, and this is more so I've noticed, and I might be wrong, this is more so I've noticed when they're female directors. So I was on set one time as an actor, and someone who was taking photos actually said something, and they spoke over, and I looked at them and I went, "You're not the director. Mm-hmm. Miss Director, what should I do? How do you want this done?" And that person did not seem to like me after that, but that's not their job. And while it is kind of indie films, there is a lot more collaboration. It's not them to tell me how they want the scene done. It's the director's job to tell me how they want the scene done. And sometimes the director will be like, "Oh, hey, that's actually not a bad idea."
Yep.
And I'll take that direction. But when they're speaking over them, I'm going to look at the director and be like, "Hey, what do you want done?" Okay. So it's one of those things where to know there is that level of collaboration on indie set, but also to know there's a level of structure. So one of those things where it's a weird mesh because sometimes you bring people in that haven't worked on film and kind of think it's a big party. And I know all of you have probably dealt with that.
Ooh.
I know I've only one out of here I've worked with has been Jason. I know he's dealt with it. So
anybody does.
But yeah, so it's one of those things where sometimes you have to be that person and be like, "This isn't your job, and I need the person whose job it is to tell me what they need done." So that's one thing with the whole collaboration part that I've learned, but that's been on other people's sets. Because generally it's me, for my sets, it's me and Mariah, and then John behind the camera for us. So.
Excellent. Ms. Asha, how about you?
Yeah, I'm so happy you mentioned that about the female director scene. It is difficult. Not gonna lie. The first time, Yeah, why not? First time I decided to actually
unload, just let
right?
it go.
The first time I was like, I'm going to be, because, okay, before that point, I usually was in the space. I'm glad you mentioned about the acting as well. I do that as well. But I'm usually producing other people's films. And that means I literally listen to your vision. I listen to what everyone needs. I try to find ways, obviously, to have, cover budget, cover releases, everything you can think of. And I'm like, producer, I take the back seat, no problem. And the idea was always to be the producer that when I do direct that I would want, right? Staying on top of everything and being resourceful. So when I finally decided to step in the space of directing, I had made this mistake of saying I'm going to have an editor and an assistant editor. And we were doing the 48-hour film project, and we had this great process of as soon as we would finish up about 2 different scenes, I would copy paste over into a hard drive, pass it over to the editor so they can start looking over things now. We had it was a system, it was going fine. Only problem was we were shorthanded because, like you said, sometimes people don't always come through. So we were slating differently, I guess, than one of the editors wanted. And I even made sure I was like, let's take 5. And I went and spoke to editors, and I'm like, just so you know, the person, we don't have a scripty right now, or he didn't show up, help, just so you know, this is how it's going to go right now. So we're going to just I'm going to go through and just kind of pull from the notes that the DP and I took of which scenes actually, or which cuts or which takes were actually good, just so you have an idea of what you're looking at. I'm thinking I'm communicating. We start filming. It's our 3rd scene in that we're filming, of course not in order, but still 3rd scene that we're filming. And he decides to come up, and instead of saying how I went to them and said, hey guys, this is what's happening with us on set, just so you know what's going on with you guys in post. Instead, he decides to yell at me. And I knew fully well in the back of my mind, I'm like, I know you wouldn't do this if it was one of your buddies. I wouldn't even do this if it was a guy. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm not going to do this. And I'm not going to work on that set. And I was just like, no problem. Go home. And I spoke very calmly about it. I was like, why? And I'm like, either you're going to learn how to actually effectively communicate in a respectful manner, or go home. And he was just like, I said I'm going to leave. I'm not going to edit then. I'm not going to. And I was just like, that's fine. I'm not going to sink down your level. Go home. You are dismissed.
Oh.
And the DP's like, no problem. I'll edit with, and I didn't know my DP could actually edit. It was so funny. I was like, well, really? And he's like, also, furthermore, I don't appreciate how you spoke to my director. I'll edit. And I was like, all the more reason, but bye.
Bye, Felicia.
Right? And ironically, he ended up actually begging to stay, which is hilarious, but it's okay. And he didn't do that again. No yelling, nothing, because I wasn't going to yell with him. No, definitely not. And it stuck with me. It taught me a lot about myself, actually, in that time, because anyone else would have gone off the handle or cry. I did none of those. I'm like, we're here to create a film. I'm trying to keep our team together. Things happen. I came to you and respectfully communicated. You could have done the same if that's how you really felt.
Nice.
So that's one. Where are we going? We were talking about so then back to the seat of acting as well. Oh my gosh, I've had some weird situations. I've had things like, okay, so I worked in this film called The Promotion. I was acting as a comedic character, go figure. And I was acting and producing. Okay, that's a whole nother thing. So I got everyone else ready, myself last, of course, and then I'm like, okay, cool, now I'm ready to start, shooting my scenes. And the DP just kept being like, oh, pull down your shirt more. Oh, do this over here. And I'm like, is that what the director wants us to do? Like, what are we doing? And she's like, it's a romance film, not a porno. Like, what are you doing? But oddly enough, I remember even though I can direct and I can produce, I didn't tell her, oh, well, I agree this, or I want to do it this way. I was just like, and your thoughts, Mr. Director? You know, like, however you feel about it, I'll do it. And check, I do like his idea about leaning over this way. And I'm like, I don't even know this guy. I goes acting in a scene with someone I didn't even know. I'm like, I'm going to lean on you now. It's going to be real weird, but we'll get through it. And I just went with it. And now we're all great friends. And people did think it looks like a soft porno. It's okay. Like,
It's not that going for it.
I mean, it was revision. I'm just executing. But that did also teach me a lot about the relationship between a DP and a director then too. Just watching the dynamic.
Sorry, I got distracted by Han Solo's head behind me.
I just see cats with lasers.
I know.
Cats. You've got stories. I wish we were doing a real the bar kind conversation would be super fun. All right, but we can't. There's no lake with leeches in there. We can't go to Leech Lake. Although I guess
Can't go to Leech Lake.
You'd have to stand 6 feet apart, and then you'd get sad. Sammy Castle, what do you think are some of the hardest parts about collaborating, especially within an indie film?
Just for the record, Asha, Jason made me get shirtless in the movie I did with him, so
it's true.
I
I ogled him the entire time. I'm like, pull down more. I'm like, just take your shirt off entirely. Fuck it. So, I mean, it was just,
yeah.
So Sammy, next year at Con Carolinas, when he asked you to get shirtless next to Leech Lake, don't do it.
No, and I can't swim, so if he pushes me in, I'll just die.
I think it probably come up like your waist.
I'll go old man on us real quick. As in life, on a film set, communication is everything. And there's too many people who do not communicate.
Yep.
So if you work on a big set, you see a lot of communication. And everybody, you see the AD say, go do this, and that guy goes and does that. And you see the second AD say, look at that guy and say, go do that, and they go do that. And then the director comes in and tells the AD what to do. Everybody's got their place, and everybody knows what they're doing. We all work with that person, or have worked with a person that they come on set and, okay, if I'm on Jason's film and I'm going to act, I show up, I act. I don't try to tell him how to direct. I don't try to tell, I'm not telling Tristan where to put the light. I'm not telling Jason Ledford, do this, do that. I'm there to act. That's what I do. If I'm on my set, I'm producer actor, then when we need something, somebody turns and looks at me and says, we need this. I look at somebody and say, go do that. This is what I need. Go call that person. And then I'm the guy who is the communication center. But there's some shorts that don't have that, or some films that don't have that communication center. So you got these two over here talking about this, these two over here talking about that, and it makes everything disjointed. So communication, as with life, would be so much easier. Life would be so much easier for communicating. If filmmaking would be easy as long as you communicate. If you can talk to people. I have zero issue with walking up to somebody and saying, hey, don't do that, do this. Whether it's a project or, which is reason everybody seems to think I'll be a pretty good director, is because I have no problems giving constructive criticism. I know how to give constructive criticism and not just down somebody for doing something. Don't make them feel bad about themselves because they didn't do it exactly like you wanted it when you didn't tell them how you wanted it done. I've got a buddy of mine that I've done a lot of short films with. He knows his niche. He knows what he does. He director-wise, he's very, he doesn't give a lot of direction. But I know that. So when I get on set, he says, hey, let's do this. I know where I'm going. I know he's turning me loose to do my thing. Dan, who's my production partner, just says, here's your script. It's a guideline for you. Hit the bullet points. That's all I need. If he wants a specific sentence, he gives me that specific sentence, and that's what I do. But if I work with somebody that wants it perfectly, then I'll learn it perfectly and do that. So you just have to communicate with everyone, and it makes it so much easier.
And that's actually really good for someone as an actor when you go in after you've read the script and you say, hey, I was practicing this. when I say it like this, it doesn't come out natural, but when I say it like this, it does. What's your opinion on that? And making sure that you talk about that with them instead of going in and not necessarily giving a good performance. So yeah, no, you're totally right with where communication is totally key.
Well, when I got the luxury to work on Giggles, I never got a script or anything. I was just told, here's your character. Then I show up and Jason's like, okay, do this, say this, say that, say this. And I'm like, okay, I know where you want me to go now. Let's run. And it was good from there on out.
I mean, to be honest, mate, the horses did most of the work.
True.
And I will say that's very similar to a lot of, so last year I spent a lot of time working in Los Angeles on television sets. And one of the shows I worked on, my script just had actions on it. It was one of the crime reenactment shows, but it was one of those where they actually had you talking. So the day I went in for it, the director looked at me, he's like, okay, this is what I want you to say. And just did it that way. So that's very, very similar to that. And there was a lot of good communication and there was a lot of flexibility, which is one thing you have to have on set.
You have to be adaptable, yes.
No, actually, that leads me into one of my last questions. And is, how do you as creators give up some level of control over the creation of a product that you've nurtured, maybe either as a producer or as a writer and a director and stuff like that, when you bring other talented souls into your creative fold? How do you, I guess, how important is flexibility overall, and how do you deal with that in terms of allowing an actor, to be able to say, this line doesn't flow really well. What if I said it like this? Or what if they did, they have an action that feels more in line with their character? Or if you've got, you're working with somebody, Sammy's gone, so working on on the score with somebody, it's like, I want it to feel like this kind of a movie, or whatever like that. But in terms of relinquishing whatever controls over the creativity of the product as a whole, how do you deal with that, and how important is that flexibility to the overall spirit of collaboration?
Trust. Sorry, first word came to mind. Trust. You have to trust that other people are they're going to, that it is a collaboration. You want to trust that they're actually going to bring their best ideas forward. They're going to bring their best attitude. They're going to communicate and execute what helps the overall picture. So that's trust is like first and foremost that comes to mind. And definitely, I must admit, over time, you start learning who you actually can work well with. I remember the first time that someone told me that being a DP and a director, that's like a marriage. And at first I was like, that's silly, that's crazy. And I definitely have to agree now. Like, you have to be with, you don't actually have to be married to them, but it does feel like in terms of the sense of kind of like one body, one sound. When you're trying to create a film or anything, even though there's different moving parts and everyone has their own different way of how they're helping out. And even so, I remember, story time a little bit here. I remember actually the first time I worked with a DP that now I've worked with so many times. We had a situation where they're like, no, I don't think we should film that. And I'm like, yes, we should film that. And we went like back and forth for a while. And at first I got mad. I'm not gonna lie, when people was like, we don't work well together. He's always like pushing back. And they're like, well, does it help you think differently about how to film something? Does it help the project move better? Like, is it helpful? Is it constructive? And I was like, I mean, yeah, we like, won awards and stuff and people like it. Like, gosh, it was so annoying. Kept saying no, and then he'd be like, and it was awesome because we ended up talking to each other about it, which I loved, that we would kind of almost producer's corner whenever we're in post. And then we would have a DP director moment, like, we're going to just talk for a minute, 1 second.
Don't fight in front of the kids.
Exactly. We're like, hold on, just you guys, work on your lines, 1 second. And we like went over to the side. And I'm like, I want to do blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, this crazy director. No, we can't do all those things because the lighting and the something and expose. I'm like, I'm like, yeah, I get it. I trust what you're saying. But so how are we going to do that anyway? Like, how can I get something like that? And he's like, I don't know, maybe if I move 10 degrees over to this way. And I'm like, okay. But like, and to us, like I said, I was just the idea there's a pushback. I was like, no. But then I realized later on, I trusted him. I trusted that he really wanted us to good. And then he trusted me too. Like, that idea wasn't so crazy. It looked actually pretty cool in the end. I'm like, I know, right? And it became like a winning collaboration. Positive story. Okay.
Nice. Angela, how about you, Liv?
So for me, it's one of those things where if it's someone I've never worked with, but I'm familiar with their work, I will go through and like look at what they've done before and kind of be like, hey, this is the same mood as when you did this. Don't do the same thing, make it unique. But it's kind of like, especially if it's like a composer or something like that, be like, hey, this is, similar to this in style, but, just go wild with it, especially if I trust them for what they're doing. Like if it's someone I've never worked with before, I'll kind of just go with it. And if they say things that I'm kind of like, no, that's not going to work. Let's talk about this. But it's one of those things where if you can, and it's someone you've never worked with before and they have stuff that's out, I'll go through and kind of research that just to kind of get a feel of what they've done, which would kind of give you their style in a way too. So, but then also there are people you've never worked with, so you don't always know what to expect. And you might end up in a bar doing makeup on a bunch of women who are supposed to be strippers for a short film in Winston-Salem.
If I had a nickel for every time that happened to me.
I mean, it was your short film. I had no idea what to expect.
That was my. Sorry.
No,
there were tacos.
Well, there were tacos, and I got a very, very strong respect for pole dancers that night because holy cow, those women are strong.
Yeah.
So,
Sammy, how about you, sir? Well, the main reason I first started going out and acting for other people was for our production. I wanted to find a really good sound person, and I wanted to find a backup DP in case our normal guy couldn't do it, and sometimes just to give a different look. So that's the whole reason I went out and started working with other people and trying to cherry pick, for lack of a better term, the best people that I run into.
No, you're right. That's the best term to use. Yeah, I mean, that's what you're.
Yeah. So when Dan says, okay, we're going to go into our next project here's what it is. We can't get this person for this or that person for that. Who do you know? And I'm like, oh, well, I got this person, that person, So then we start contacting and finding out rates and that kind of stuff.
Rates. What is this word you speak of?
Rates. Right. It's funny because when we first started, rates. We didn't even have food on set. We literally knew nothing about any of that. And then you start seeing the progression. And as a filmmaker, you want to see your filmmaking ability progress, but you also want to see your abilities progress at being a filmmaker. So you start, as your abilities start getting better, you start working with better people, and then that's when you start working with better people, then comes the money, and then you start having to have pay rates, but by the same token, if you're a group that someone likes working with, you get a little better rate.
Yeah.
They'll say, this is my regular rate. This is what I'll do it for you.
Because the family discount goes a long way.
Yeah. And I never asked for that. But if it's offered, we always try to pay everybody as much as we can. I always act for free in our stuff, hoping at some point we might make something that somebody else will pay us to do. And we were actually hired to produce a film. We were hired to produce a short for another guy in North Carolina until all this happened. So that's been, of course, delayed for inevitable. Yes, God. I forgot the question. Where was I headed?
No, yeah, you nailed it, dude. You won.
Really did.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't know if we're gonna get played off here anytime soon. I did have one other question. If you could collaborate with any person, indie, big budget, alive, dead, run the gamut, who would you want to collaborate with for a film? And there's Frozen Mulligan back again. Who would you want to collaborate with and why? And we'll go straight to Bill Mulligan for his answer.
He's muted.
Excellent. I like his answer. Good answer, Bill. Good job, Bill. Let's go to Angela.
Oh, now he's gone.
You made him mad.
That's really difficult because there's like a bunch of people I would like to collaborate with, like big budget stuff. Oh, gosh, put me on the.
That's how I feel too. Yeah. I know.
Yeah, like.
Go straight to Sammy there.
I mean, if you want to come back to me, but
I got an answer.
Okay, yeah, let Sammy go first.
Big budget. I would love to produce with Quentin Tarantino because that group just looks like they have fun. Where it's Robert Rodriguez and that whole crew, and they make movies for me. So I would love to produce for that. On a more local level, I've kind of been ticking off my people I want to work with. Jason was number one on my list, and now I've been able to work with him. I've now been able to work with Brett. But to the people sitting here, I've not got to work with Bill or Angela. And I would love to.
About it.
Yeah, we have discussed it, and at some point it'll happen because our film communities.
We all know I have a Samuel L. Jackson approach. I'll work with anybody.
Yeah, I'm kind of that way too. That's and I'm cheap too, which makes it even better. And I travel well. But here lately, I've been doing some bigger stuff to just get that experience to bring back to us. So I've got to work on the new Walking Dead show for a couple of days, and the Halloween movie, Halloween Kills.
That show's still on.
No, this is the new one. They're doing a new one.
They're doing another one.
So I went and worked on The Eyes of Tammy Faye Baker, which is the biopic they filmed in Charlotte. So it was about getting my name out some. Just I always want to be the person that everybody's like, Sammy's pretty cool to work with. He's not too much of a pain. So yeah, there's a lot of local filmmakers I'd love. Yeah, two sitting right here. Asha, we'll get there.
I'm actually in Carolinas. I'm in Charlotte.
Well, that's.
We're all in the same state, so
I travel well.
But okay, I have my answer. If that.
All right, lay it on us.
Okay, so actually I have two.
Okay, no, you're only one.
Only one, but it's two, and they're really good. One of them would be Jordan Peele, because that man is amazing, and that'd be really awesome. Like, the stuff he has put out in the last few years has been so good, and it's very influential, makes people think, and that's the type of stuff that I would want to work on. The other would be Ryan Murphy, because dude is freaking amazing. Like, everything he does is awesome. Again, another influential and director that makes you think. So it's stuff like that I would want to work on. But yeah. So.
All right, Asha, you're up.
Yeah, I know, right? After all that. Yeah, I was gonna definitely say, without not to just sound like a pageant queen here, but I would love to work with you guys. I mean that really honestly, based on just what we've been discussing today.
I'll hold this number up on the bottom of the screen for the internet.
That would be so. No, I'm excited. I really am. Actually, I'm glad that we're doing this. This is not what I thought I was going to get out of the panel, so I'm excited. I was ready to I have stories, I have details. But instead it became this. Yeah, I would love to work with my celebrity crush, Ashton Kutcher. I'll put it out there. Why not? Never know.
No judgment.
I always loved how, because I'm into comedy, and of course, he used to produce Pranked and all, Punked and all that. So I definitely have to also second with Jordan Peele in terms of the idea of the genius mind, for sure. And Gina Prince would be up there in some capacity, even if it's just a shadow. I don't know. There's certain directors Malcolm D. Lee, but I've actually got to meet him. I love the fact that he has award-winning films, yet no one always knows his name. I don't know, that kind of, I want that kind of thing. Where people are like, I love your films.
They're not following you down in SUVs to take your photo.
That's what I mean. I can just go to the beach and hang out.
Jason, you called director dibs on everything ever put out on Facebook. Who do you want to work with?
Rod Serling.
Oh, well, yeah.
In a fucking heartbeat, dude. Rod Serling. No, I've had a big boy crush on Robert Rodriguez for many moons now. Ever since I wandered into a theater and saw Desperado, I'm like, man, the Eagles. But I went and watched the movie anyway. And then I'm just like, what? But that was one of those movies that made me want to be a filmmaker long before I ever actually realized that or became aware of that idea myself. So definitely, I mean, Rod Serling. I mean, The Twilight Zone just shaped my mind or warped it, depending on which way you look at convex versus concave. Way too tender and early of an age. We're getting played off. I think Gilbert's just taking off his pants and leaving. He's like, I'm done. Everybody look at my ass when I walk out of the room. You know, I mean, it's just like, no. So with that poetic note, which I believe Byron wrote originally, might have been Coleridge. I get the two mixed up. Romanus, what are you going to do? I would like to personally just thank all of our brilliant panelists. I mean, thank you to Asha and to Angela, and I mean, I guess I have to include Sammy too. Just for sitting down, you know, for talking for an hour about the virtual art of collaboration and filmmaking. And everyone, please, we'll tag everyone in intros and stuff like that. But each one of these filmmakers has brilliant stuff out. Was going to be a part of a Con Carolinas. Will hopefully be a part of Con Carolinas again. Everyone, check out their stuff and watch Movie Magic.
Yeah.